Hi, my name is Cora Bree Hernandez, and this is my final presentation for Communications 320 Winter Quarter 2018. I'm going to speak to you about three topics. The first one will be on my experience as it pertains to the 3 career search informational interviews I performed this quarter. The second point will be tying my Strength Quest results to the interview process. And finally, for my third point, I will be discussing how the course material connects with the interview process. To start off, I want to just tell you the names of the people and their positions that I had the opportunity to interview. My first interview was with Mike Riley, who's the Chief Financial Officer for the Spokane Regional Health District. My next interview was with Robin Highbarger, a Senior Human Resources Manager at the Spokane VA Medical Center. And my last interview was with Marcus Rosselli, who is a Project Manager for CHAS, or Community Health Association of Spokane. And he's also a Washington State Representative for the 3rd District right here in our very own Spokane. I'll now give a little summary and evaluate and analyze my interview experiences and performance with these 3 amazing individuals. In my first interview, I introduced myself very awkwardly and then introduced my interview participant. Since part of my assignment was to record the audio, in retrospect, I should have allowed him the chance to introduce himself. Having him introduce himself would have lent more credibility to the interview. Similarly to my introduction, all of my closing portions of my interviews were somewhat disjointed and awkward. So that'll be something I will work on for the future. In my interviews with Mike and Robin, I used the audio recorder app on my cell phone. This was my first time formally recording audio, and I was nervous about using my phone in this way. I decided to test my phone's app, and it worked great at home, so I felt more confident about using it for my interviews. My last interview, which was with Marcus, went a little bit differently than the first 2, due to the fact that Marcus was in session in Olympia on the day that the interview was scheduled. So I decided to try using my landline and cell phone together. I asked Marcus to call my landline, and I put that phone on speaker, and then I used my cell phone to record the audio coming from it. In this case, I was much more nervous that the quality of the audio would be poor. Thankfully, the audio turned out to be of fair quality. However, I would not recommend doing an interview in this way, as it is far from ideal. When I first started out, I initially expected that my interview prospects would be apprehensive of my request to record them, and some of them were. However, the 3 people I ended up interviewing were quite comfortable with being recorded and did not have an issue with it. I think I did my best question asking in my first interview because I followed my protocol and my participants answered fully and comprehensively. In my second interview, I deviated a bit from my protocol and my questions were not always answered as completely as I would have liked. I think this can be attributed to the fact that my interviewee and I were very comfortable with each other. And although Robin and I had just met, there was a sense of familiarity between us, so it was a bit easier to get off track from my protocol. I do think I laughed too loudly, and definitely more than I probably should have in my last 2 interviews. But overall, I gained much knowledge from these experiences. For my second point, I will evaluate what I learned through the interview process and how it ties to my Strengths Quest results. The following are the top 3 things I learned that I found the most valuable to me during the process. It was encouraging to learn that all 3 of the individuals I interviewed did not follow a specific black and white path regarding education and experience to get them where they are today, which is in positions of management in healthcare. This ties to my context theme, which for me describes the fact that I find meaning in the underlying structure and history of people and things. I feel more confident in my decisions, whether the choices are to be made regarding work, family, or education, if I know the past. Knowing the steps that led to my interview participants' current careers helps me to see my trajectory or blueprint for the future more clearly. The second thing I learned was interviewing someone takes as much preparation and structure as preparing to be interviewed. This ties to my achiever and input themes. The achiever theme in me is the constant drive to accomplish tasks and provides me with the energy I need to work long hours without burning out. For my input theme, I like to collect information and I am inquisitive, which is fortunate since being an interviewer was new to me and a challenging task, so I needed all the information and guidance that I could find. The last thing that was really important to me that stood out after finishing this project was that the people in my fields of interest who are also part of my community are generous and kind. This tied to my theme of harmony and intellection. When I first started calling organizations to propose my ask to them, I was initially shot down by a few places or even transferred multiple times throughout the organization. But the harmony theme means that there is little to be gained from conflict and friction, so I seek to keep that to a minimum. This is where the intellection theme comes in, because I saw the situation as me trying to solve a problem and understand another person's feelings, where they're coming from, why they may or may not want to be interviewed. Because of this theme, I was able to be introspective about what techniques and strategies were working and not working when I was calling strangers and asking them to consider allowing me to interview them. It was kind of a trial and error situation. My third point, how the course material generally tied in with my interview experience and overall my personal feelings about the course material are, the first thing I wanted to mention was that many of the chapters in our Revel textbook followed along pretty well with the project management class I've been taking this quarter, and I found that very helpful in my learning. As far as the Revel textbook and assignments go, some of the reading was remedial for me and the assignments were somewhat redundant. The Strengths Quest textbook was interesting and I wish that we'd used it a bit more throughout the quarter. With that said, the textbooks both were still a good reference and resource for me. Specifically, the Revel textbook was a great resource for the interview project. I referenced Revel to hone my question asking skills for all my interviews, and I also chose to use a funnel sequence in my question asking, meaning that I used open questions and proceeded to more closed questions. In conclusion, throughout the interview project assignment, I faced challenges. However, I'm very glad I succeeded in performing all 3 interviews, and I'm thankful that Khalil, our instructor, made this a requirement for this course and part of his curriculum. I was so pleased to hear from all 3 of my interview participants that they had not been traditional students, meaning they were non-traditional students just like me, which is when you're an adult and you go back to college. It's an important distinction that can be drawn from their success in their careers in life in the fact that all had some, if not an abundance of diversity in their work, education, and life experience prior to becoming who they are today. I also found that when I was looking for good interviewees, the people I spoke to were generally glad to help facilitate my ask, and I learned a great deal from this assignment, and I have made some tremendous contacts in our community through the interview process. My third interview participant, Marcus, even said that when I graduated, I should contact him regarding job openings at his organization, which of course boosted my ego, but also made me feel more secure in my choice to get this bachelor's. I think I did a pretty good job in this class. I hope you all did too. Thanks for watching.